The Palestinian Authority was telling its people that the massacre of 250 young people at that party, at that musical festival, that massacre was part of Islam. It wasn't just Palestinian nationalism. It was fulfillment of Islam. That's the Palestinian Authority.
Well, welcome back to the Keeping It Israel podcast and our Battle for Truth series. And my name is Jeff. I'm your host. And my guest today, a very special guest, Itamar Marcus, who is the director of Palestinian Media Watch. He is the founder and director of PMW, one of the foremost authorities in Palestinian ideology and policy. Marcus was appointed by the Israeli government to represent Israel in negotiations on incitement with the Palestinian Authority in 1999. He makes regular presentations to legislators, governments, and other decision makers about PA leaders, education, sports, and so on. His book, Deception, was acclaimed by the founder of Human Rights Watch, Robert Bernstein, as, quote, one of the most important books you handle in your lives, end quote. Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you today.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Great to be with you.
Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about Palestinian Media Watch. When was it founded? What led to you doing this, and what is it all about?
Well, the year was 1996. We had signed a deal with the Palestinian Authority, literally the PLO, Yasser Arafat, in 1993. Supposedly a peace process, but there were suicide bombings, there was terror. Terror had increased dramatically after we signed. So we decided to see what was happening in the internal Palestinian world, to look at all the Palestinian media sources, to study Palestinian education, their school books, and let's find out what's really going on in the Palestinian world. What are they telling their people? And we found very quickly that there were two different worlds. There was the English language world that they were presenting to the Americans, to the Israelis, supposedly wanting peace. The internal world, to their own people, to their children, was one of poison, hatred, justification for killing, justification for being martyrs, desire to be martyrs. This was happening at the youngest children levels and at the adult levels. And we started warning right away already in 1996, 1997.
Wow. Now, you've talked about the messaging, about the fact that they start with their children. How serious is this? And, I'm assuming we're seeing the fruit of that during this current conflict.
Absolutely. And we saw the fruits of this tremendously over the last few years. Let me just tell you what was happening before October 7th, before the horrific Hamas attack. We were having more terror than we'd had in many, many years from Judea and Samaria. And one of the striking parts about the terror were the incredible number of young children involved in terror. Not only were young children involved in terror, but they were actually writing farewell letters to their parents beforehand, telling them that they wanted to die and be a shaheed, a martyr for Allah, and get the rewards in paradise. And I'll give you examples. There was a 14-year-old boy who wrote a letter to his parents, and he said, if you're reading this, don't cry for me, mother. Make sounds of joy. Be joyous over my blood. Oh, my father, don't be angry at me. I asked for martyrdom, and Allah granted it for me. This is a kid. Another child wrote a letter which was even sadder. He writes, when I die, don't put me in the refrigerator because you know I don't like the cold. My favorite bracelet I hid under my pillow. Please save it. Bury me next to other children so I can talk to them. In other words, these kids, he's such a kid. He's afraid of getting cold in a refrigerator, but he's dead. And he wants to be next to other children. And he saved his bracelet, but he wants to die for Allah. That's the success of the horrific education of the Palestinian Authority that has been telling kids since they're 5, 6 years old, and we see it on these children programs, that the best thing that they can do in life is to die for Allah, meaning they could fight Israelis and get killed doing it. And now all these kids are competing with each other. Who's going to be the next one to be a martyr for Allah? And they're going out and successfully killing themselves.
Horrible. Absolutely horrific. Now, this is not just hearsay. This is well documented.
Absolutely. Everything that I'm telling you right now, you can find on our website. You can find the parents talking about their children's desire. You can hear them. We don't do voiceover. We do subtitles so that everybody who speaks Arabic can actually hear. Everything has the date. It's official Palestinian TV or official Fatah broadcasting. It's all there and completely well documented. And in fact, the Palestinian Authority is never denying what we're reporting on.
Yeah, that part of it just boggles my mind how brazen they are. And I heard, I think it was Ben Shapiro, say something like, they will tell you exactly what they're going to do. They'll tell you that they're going to kill Jews wherever they find them, that they won't stop until they're all dead. And they tell you this because they know you won't believe it because you think it's so ridiculous. It's really, really difficult. He also said, he also said, you won't believe it because, North Americans are stupid. And it's unfortunate, but this propaganda, it seems to be working. And we talked about this a little bit before we came on air. No matter how much truth you pour into this, it's like it gets sucked into this vacuum of deception and lies.
Yeah, and it's worse than propaganda. It's indoctrination. When kids are reciting poems on TV that they know by heart, both in terms of hatred of Jews. For example, we've heard numerous times children on TV talking about the Jews being the descendants of monkeys and pigs, the enemies of Allah. The kids say this over and over again. They end up thinking, well, this is obviously true. I hear it from everyone. The other significant thing, and this gets to the crux of the issue, how do you convince people to kill Israelis and Jews? Palestinians are taught to believe that Jews are so hateful that everybody in the world is in danger because of the Jews. The Jews suffered years of anti-Semitism and years of massacres because they were so terrible, and everybody had to defend themselves. And one of the people who said this was no one less than Mahmoud Abbas, the chairman, the president of the Palestinian Authority. He said on TV that since the 11th century, every few years the Jews suffered massacres. And why did they do this? And he says because of their social role, because they took interest in their social role and other things. He also recently said, why did Hitler kill the Jews? This was just this past year. He said, why did Hitler kill the Jews? He said, he said, because their social role, they were causing him damage and danger. That's why Hitler killed the Jews. In other words, the PA tells its people, it's not just we who hate the Jews. Everybody hates the Jews. They deserve to be hated. They threaten all humanity. They threaten you. Therefore, if you kill a Jew, you're doing a service to humanity. That is a nutshell of the evil of Palestinian Authority ideology. It's Hamas ideology, but it's also Palestinian Authority ideology.
And how seriously should we take this media? I want you to talk to people about why it's so important that we understand how hateful and deceptive and absolutely diabolical this is.
Well, part of the issue is it's not just the media. The media is, for us, the window to the ideology of the leadership. In other words, what I told you now, what Mahmoud Abbas has said, well, he said that on TV. He said that in front of the cameras, but he's also telling it to his people and all the other officials and the teachers in the schools are. Everybody's coming with a uniform message. This is not a free democracy, the Palestinian Authority. It's really a dictatorship. And whatever messages the leadership wants, that's what the people are going to get. So when they are telling their people that the Jews threaten you and humanity, therefore killing them is a valuable thing to do, you're justified in killing, that's the message coming to all the people. The Palestinian Authority, for example, has argued many times that there's no such thing as a Palestinian terrorist. And for that reason, every Palestinian who kills an Israeli, everyone who attacks an Israeli, everyone who goes to jail who goes to jail for attacking an Israeli and even killing immediately starts getting a salary from the Palestinian Authority. They get on the payroll. There are probably today 10,000 Palestinians, including prisoners and released prisoners, who continue to get this high salary. It's costing the Palestinian Authority $350 million a year to reward terrorists. And when I say terrorists, I'm talking about even people like there's a person named Abdullah Barghouti. He was a Hamas bomb builder. He built the bombs that blew up in Hebrew University. They blew up in a number of cafes, on buses. He killed 67 people. He's already received $300,000 in salary from the Palestinian Authority. $300,000. Wow. And I might add this to your listeners. That's Western money. That's foreign money. The Americans and the Europeans have been fooling themselves by saying, oh, it's not our money. We're paying for this. That's Palestinian Authority money. But of course, it's a joke. It's one pot. You can't tell them what you're paying for. If you're paying for the teacher so they can pay the salary to the terrorists, then you're responsible for the terrorists as well. And so this is the key. The Palestinian Authority says there's no such thing as a Palestinian terrorist. These are all freedom fighters, even if they kill women and children.
Wow. It's just so mind-boggling, and yet people are taking it in and buying into it, and it's very troubling to me. Now, I know that what we're talking about is more than just what's out there on the media. As you just said, it's an ideology that's preached to every Palestinian from a very young age. Now, what I want to ask is, after the events of October the 7th, to your knowledge, did any Palestinian media condemn what had occurred?
No, not. First of all, the Palestinian Authority did not condemn. Secretary of State Blinken was in Israel and then went to the PA, and he insisted to Abbas that he condemn, and Abbas refused to condemn. Abbas's advisor, Mahmoud al-Habash, his advisor on Islam, was on TV, a month ago, and he was asked about this, and he says, no one, not Abbas, no one, in spite of all the pressure, we have not condemned Hamas. Beyond that, something else is very shocking that's happened. The entire world, horrified by the beheadings, burning people alive, the rape, the murder, everybody in the world who's got any decency is horrified by this. Palestinian Authority sees this now as an opportunity to unify with Hamas. Now, wow. It's crazy. The United States and all these Western countries are funding the PA. Why don't they realize that if the PA sees this as an opportunity to unify with Hamas, there's something wrong with the PA as well? Let me say something else about what's going on. There were two terrible things that happened on October 7th. One was what Hamas did, and the other thing was the Palestinian Authority response. The Palestinian Authority embraced this. On Palestinian TV the next morning, we heard a Fatah leader say, we woke up to a morning of joy, a morning of happiness, a morning of pride. Massacring and raping Israelis was a morning of pride. And it's continued. This was the attitude that continued in the Palestinian Authority. And then what happened was we saw polls a month and then 2 months later that were just absolutely shocking. A poll that came out about a month and a half later, when everybody knew the atrocities, everybody knew what happened, 75% of Palestinians in West Bank and Gaza supported what happened. It was actually higher in the West Bank. 82% supported the attack that happened. And then they were asked, did these recent events give you pride as a Palestinian? And this even shocked me, and I know the Palestinians inside out. 98% said it gave them pride as Palestinians. So you're talking about not an overwhelming majority, you're talking about everyone. The entire wow. Palestinian population was proud that they went and they did this horrific massacre. Now, how could that be? I'll tell you how. First of all, I described to you before how they convinced Palestinians that to fight Jews is a service to humanity. But there's a second component as well that's probably even more important, and that's the Islamic component. The way the Palestinian Authority interprets Islam, the Jews are cursed of Allah, the enemies of Allah, and Allah wants them killed. There is a hadith that's part of Islamic tradition that talks about the end of time, the hour of resurrection won't come until Muslims fight the Jews and kill them. 2 weeks after October 7th, when it came time for the Friday sermons, and the Palestinian Authority Ministry of Religion published its weekly talking points for the sermons that all the mosques in the Palestinian Authority are supposed to preach. What did they include? They included that Islamic source, that the resurrection, the end of time won't come until Muslims fight the Jews and kill them. And then it continues. Jews are going to hide behind rocks and trees, which are going to call out, Muslim, servant of Allah, there's a Jew behind me, come and kill him. Well, what happened 2 weeks before? The Jews who were at that party out in nature were hiding behind rocks and trees, and Muslims came and killed them. The Palestinian Authority was telling its people that the massacre of 250 young people at that party, at that musical festival, that massacre was part of Islam. It wasn't just Palestinian nationalism. It was fulfillment of Islam. That's the Palestinian Authority. That's what they tell their people. So let's understand how evil this is.
And Itamar, tell us what the source of those statistics were. Where did the polling come from?
The polling came from a Palestinian polling organization in Ramallah, in the Palestinian capital. And it's from a very reliable polling agency. And then the next month, the even more senior polling agency did a similar poll and found out the identical results. He didn't ask about pride, but he asked about supporting the terror, and it was again 75 to 80% supporting. And they asked people, do you support Hamas or the Palestinian Authority? Popular sentiment for Hamas was like up at 90%. And for the Palestinian Authority down at 10%. Why? Because the Palestinian Authority hadn't actively participated. They only supported it. And the people were angry. You should have joined in this wonderful massacre of Jews. Why didn't you do it? So today, the entire population of Palestinians are Hamas supporters. I can't remember if it was Biden or if it was Blinken. One of them made a statement in response to Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza, and which was also having civilian casualties. And one of them said, well, Palestinians don't support Hamas. The problem is only Hamas. You can't make up your own facts. And this is something that has caused probably so much trouble over the years for Israel. You can't make up your own facts. Don't deny that the Palestinians are a problem population. This is a poisoned population. They've been poisoned on hatred for so many years that they do support Hamas, and they do support the rape of Israeli women, and they celebrate it. So don't lie to yourself, because you're not going to get good American policy out of deceiving yourself, or if you know the truth, deceiving the American people. You're not going to get good policy. Be honest. Understand what kind of a Palestinian population we're dealing with. Understand that they cannot be in any position to have power, to have weapons, to have guns, because they will use them because they feel that's what Allah wants them to do.
Yeah. I really wanted people to hear the source of those stats, because I think that's very important. This is not Israeli propaganda. This came from a Palestinian polling organization, and it's just so difficult. It's a very, very complex and problematic situation when we talk about the war, about civilian casualties, about these accusations, false accusations of genocide. But here's the thing. I mean, we know civilians are dying, and this number is getting seemingly high. I realize, the stats come from the Palestinian Health Organization, and there is some question about accuracy. But why are there so many civilian casualties, in your opinion? And who's to blame for this? Let's just throw it right out there.
So the civilian casualties, even if they are Hamas supporters, the civilian casualties are tragic, and no Israeli is targeting civilians. But we have to remember what Hamas did on October 7th was absolutely Nazi-like. They went into homes, they shot people hiding under the beds, they shot whole families, like the Nazis did. There were a number of families. I still have their pictures. I can't get them out of my face. The pictures of the whole families, parents and their kids were all murdered. And this went over the women. There's one video of Hamas taking a bunch of men and throwing them in the back of a truck. And then they bring a woman out and he says, no, 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 put her back in the house there. She's literally a maidservant, meaning she's going to be used for being raped. I mean, there were witnesses who saw a woman being multiple rapes. I mean, this was Nazi, even worse than Nazi-like behavior. I don't remember any American press during World War II saying that when you fight against Hitler and the Nazis, you have to be careful not to get innocent German civilians when you're going at them. No, you had to destroy the Nazis. You had to destroy the Nazi Germany army, and there'd be civilian casualties all the way along the way. We have to destroy Hamas. There is no question after what they did. Hamas is responsible for every single civilian because they're the ones who placed their terrorists under civilian homes, in UNRWA buildings, inside schools, inside hospitals. Hamas is responsible for every single civilian. Israel has a responsibility to Hamas. They, because they're hiding behind civilians, are responsible for every death. So, of course, it looks bad for Israel, but people wake up. Wake up. We have an obligation to get those terrorists, and just like the Allies fought the Nazis and killed them wherever they were hiding, we have to get Hamas wherever they're hiding. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Hamas and the Palestinian Authority are telling their people to remain there and be human shields, they are equally responsible. But Israel is not responsible for one death of a civilian in Gaza. It is Hamas and the Palestinian Authority.
What are the surrounding nations doing to help civilians in Gaza? What's been the response from nations around?
Well, this is something also that I'm glad you brought this up, because let's go back a number of years to the civil war in Syria, where there was terrible fighting going on between the forces that wanted a little bit more democracy, a little freedom. They wanted to get rid of Assad, what happened was all the neighboring countries took refugees. Literally, there were millions of refugees who had to leave their homes while the fighting was going on, and they went into neighboring countries. That's what they did because they were all Arab brothers, and they would take it. What's going on with Egypt? And this is shocking. Egypt has an entire Sinai desert, which is empty, literally empty. And they could allow all of these refugees are at the border. Israel has to go into the last Hamas stronghold. And just to give your listeners and viewers information, Israel started the war in North Gaza. We went south. We are now at just about the last, and we always gave time for the civilians to get away, so that the civilian population is all the way now in the south, right near the border with Egypt, and Egypt's refusing to let them in. Egypt knows that Israel has no choice but to go after the Hamas leadership that's hiding out in the ground underneath where all these civilians are. And Egypt says, no, we don't want anybody to come in. What's going on with Egypt? So Egypt is supposedly has a peace treaty with Israel, but Egypt doesn't want Israel to win this war. That's all I can say. Otherwise, Egypt will say, okay, open up the border and let's let those refugees in until this war is over, and then we'll send them back when it's over. But no, Egypt literally is leaving them there. Israel's going to have to go in. There's going to have to be civilian casualties. It's going to be a mess. And I hold Egypt equally responsible here, along with Hamas and the PA.
Yeah. And they're actually threatening to abandon the peace agreement if any civilians from Gaza come into Egypt or get across the border. It boggles my mind. Okay, so we've talked about that. I did want to sort of get that out there as well. And I feel like people need to hear these things. I know we're going to get lots of hate when we post this, but it's just important for people to know and understand. Let's talk a little bit about the UNRWA. What is it exactly? What's its role? And has it helped Palestinians, in your opinion?
UNRWA, the UN Organization for Palestinian Refugees, has been, I actually wrote an article about this 2 years ago. Before this, 2 years ago I wrote it. and the title was "The Worst Thing That Ever Happened to Palestinians Was UNRWA."
Hmm.
And why is that? Because in the year 1949, when UNRWA was established, there were 750,000 Arabs who left their homes in Israel during Israel's War of Independence. The overwhelming majority left their homes on their own, and others ran away from the war, and some of them Israel had moved away because they were in strategic positions and Israel didn't want them to get killed. So Israel moved some of them. In any case, 750,000. Now, let's jump away for 1 second. A year or two later, the UN High Commission for Refugees was founded. Since the year 1950, the UN High Commission for Refugees has solved the problems and resettled over 50 million people. 50 million refugees, some of them from World War II, others from wars that continue since then. 50 million refugees, and they have solved their housing problems. They've resettled them in the countries where they've been.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened with UNRWA? They had a tiny number, 750,000, compared to the 50 million over these years. You know what's happened to that 750,000? Today it's grown to 6 million people. 6 million Palestinians are still entrapped. And that's why it's the worst thing that ever happened to Palestinians, because a child is born, he deserves to be free. And in the other UN agency, anyone who goes into refugeehood is a refugee, not their children and their grandchildren and their grandchildren. They're all going to be resettled. The Palestinian refugees are not done for human rights reasons. The UNRWA's whole purpose is to preserve them as refugees, to be a political thorn against Israel, so that they can go to the whole world and say, look, we have 6 million or 7 million refugees, and soon it's going to be 10 million refugees. Oh, terrible. Well, they're not refugees. They were all born. They were born in Syria. They were born in Jordan. They were born in Lebanon. They should be Lebanese, Syrian, and Jordan citizens. What's going on here? Let those people be free. Let those Arabs be free, Arab Muslims in their own Arab Muslim countries where they were born, and they're not giving them citizenship. It's an outrage. It's abuse. But Palestinian Authority, who is directing this and leading this charge, doesn't care about people. Everybody is a political pawn as far as the Palestinian Authority is concerned, and therefore they don't mind all the suffering of all these people in these camps, as long as they remain refugees, and we can tell the world that all these refugees have to come back to Israel, which of course they never will. Palestinian Authority is happy. And again, Palestinian Authority is literally abusing all these millions of people by calling them refugees.
Wow. Great clarification. And I think that, again, people need to understand these things. Now, let's talk about the chant that we're hearing around the world. It's echoing all over the place, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Break it down for us. What does it mean? And really, how seriously should the West take these types of threats?
So, of course, Israel is situated between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River. The Judea and Samaria, which is also called the West Bank, which is where the Palestinian Authority is on the Jordan River. And when they say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, they're saying that all of Israel has to be eliminated, and in its place has to be Palestine. Everyone who says that has different thoughts. Some of them talk about the extermination of the Jews in the Islamic way. Other people talk about the expelling of the Jews. In any case, I'll just give you a quote from a Fatah magazine for children. This is, again, Palestinian Authority is ruled by Fatah. Mahmoud Abbas, who's the head of the PA, is also the head of Fatah. Magazine for children. They teach them as following. They teach them, of course, that Palestine will be free. We have that exact quote in English in this book with the map of all of Israel. Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. And in one of the places they teach the kids, they said what happened to the colonial France in Algeria, where they ruled them for hundreds of years, and eventually, they say, every single Frenchman left Algeria. That's the precedent for Palestine. Every single Jew will leave Palestine, just like every single Frenchman left. And what's so interesting and significant is in this Fatah Children's magazine, everything is printed in black. Those words, every single Jew will leave, they put in red. To let the kids know we're talking about the expulsion of every single Jew. So this is horrific, and this is not Hamas. This is the Palestinian Authority. This is Fatah. This is the mainstream. This is the people that have poisoned the entire generation with hatred.
Yeah. Wow. I think that if you're watching, you're listening, and this sounds incredible to you, you need to go to Palestinian Media Watch website. There's all kinds of examples of this that are there that you can see in print. If you need, an Arabic friend to help you with the translation to make sure that it's all, correct or whatever, they can confirm. Unless they're biased, of course. But it's very important that you at least make an attempt to understand the truth that is out there. Itamar, in every war, there's propaganda on both sides. Talk to us about some of the major differences between pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian propaganda out there right now, in your opinion.
The Israeli propaganda that's out there is just trying to get the world to recognize what kind of an evil event happened on October 7th, and to understand that we have the obligation and the right to destroy that evil. We're not dealing with lies. We're not dealing with creating facts. We're just saying, look at what happened. Don't deny it. And then give us the opportunity to destroy the source of the evil. The Palestinian propaganda that's so common around the world is it's based on a whole world, make-believe world. October 7th never happened. One of the great lies that the Palestinian Authority themselves, the foreign ministry, publicized is that Israel was the one who killed the civilians on October 7th. You name it, the lies are out there. And then, of course, if Israel killed its own people on October 7th, then it killed them for the purpose of justifying a war against Gaza, and therefore Israel is responsible for the war against Gaza. It's an entire world of lies. They say, for example, that Israel's targeting civilians. We're not targeting civilians. It's Hamas who's hiding behind the civilians. Israel is doing things that, and generals in different armies have talked about this. Israel's doing things that have never been done before. No one ever paused an army that was fighting to give the civilian population days to clear out so that they wouldn't be killed when the fighting happens. This is what Israel's done. At every stage of this war, we've given the civilians time to leave and get away. So let the world know that. No. So the Palestinians, of course, deny this. They say we're targeting civilians. Israel even does something else. We call people, and these phone calls have been recorded. We've called people's homes, and we tell them, get everybody out of your house, because on the 5th floor of your house, of your building, there is a Hamas, communication center, terror center, missile center, you name it, and we're going to be destroying this building. So get out. And they give people warning to get out. When they don't get out, then Israel shoots onto the roof they call it knock on the roof. They shoot a missile, they'll drop a bomb that doesn't have any actual explosives in there. So it will make a minor explosion of the fuse on the roof, and everyone says, okay, they're serious. It's going to be 10 minutes. Let's get out of here. And then they'll run away. So Israel does all these things to prevent civilian deaths. And yet the propaganda, the lies, is that Israel is trying to maximize civilian deaths. I'll give you another example. In the beginning of the war, the Islamic Jihad, which was the partner to Hamas in this terror war, they fired a missile at Israel, and both Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, about 20% of their missiles misfired and landed in Gaza, killing civilians in Gaza. One of the Islamic Jihad missiles landed in the parking lot of a hospital, where it killed 50 people. Well, as soon as the missile landed, the Palestinian Authority announced, these were the lies. One, they said it was an Israeli bomb. Two, they said it landed in the hospital. And then the third lie was that they said it killed 500 people. And all the main news stations around the world who, for some reason, and maybe you can tell me coming from where you are sitting, news stations around the world in the Western media all jumped on this. Israel kills 500 people. Israel bombs the hospital and kills 500. They all jumped on this. Nobody bothered to check it out. Nobody bothered to find out if it's true. And then later on, of course, Israel said it's ridiculous, it's wrong. It turns out it was in the parking lot. It turned out 50 people were killed, and it turned out, and literally there were films. There were films showing the origin of the missile coming from the middle of the Gaza Strip and going up and then losing its trajectory and going straight down, and blowing up there. And it was Islamic Jihad that did this. The Palestinian Authority, until this day, has not changed its lie. A lot of the world media, and this is Western media we're talking about, a lot, I just don't remember which ones, otherwise I don't want to say the wrong ones by name, but some of them took days for them to change their story, to take it down from their website. They were just thrilled to have Israel look so bad. And that's part of our challenge here. The Western media, for whatever reason, be it hatred of Jews, hatred of Israel, anti-Semitism, don't know what is motivating these people, but so much of the Western media is looking for every opportunity to make Israel look bad, and to perpetuate the Palestinian Authority lies, such as this one, which it took them days to correct those that actually did correct it.
Yeah. Sad to say, Itamar, our Canadian Prime Minister was one who immediately condemned Israel and took days to walk that back once seeing the intelligence. And we're just we're sorry. We're sorry. We're so ashamed of some of these things that have happened. As first of all, Christian believers, but also those who support Israel and support truth, what is right, and that's what this series is about. It's the battle for truth. I want people who are listening and watching to understand we're not a political organization. We're not making political statements here. We just want people to understand the truth, and to know that this is not about politics. It's about humanity. It's about good versus evil, and some just inhumane things that have been happening, did happen on October 7th, have been happening since. And we want you to know that our goal is to share the truth. And so we appreciate you listening, and also appreciate you, helping us to help those in Israel who are suffering because of this war. And we have sent hundreds of thousands of dollars in humanitarian aid since the 7th of October and before, and we will continue to do so. But Itamar, thank you so much for taking the time today to just highlight some of this truth. Now, I want you to, before you go, talk to us a little bit about your book, Deception. What's it about? And is it a timely read right now?
Yes, Deception is a very important book, because what we did is we analyzed and categorized the different types of hatred that come from the Palestinian Authority, how it leads, the different type of motivation for violence and terror. And every chapter has an introduction which gives the ideological message, and then it has numerous pages of examples of this. And even though the examples change since we wrote the book, the fundamental message is identical, and the examples are different, but they're identical in message. If they depicted then the Jews as the evil force in the world, they're depicting them now as the evil force in the world. It's just a different spokesman and a different date. So it's very valuable. It's called Deception, Betraying the Peace Process. And you can get it on Amazon. You can also get it can order it directly from us at palwatch.org. Go into our website, palwatch.org. First of all, learn about what's going on. You should also join to get our daily bulletins, our daily alerts, so you'll get new videos every day to see what's really happening in the Palestinian world. You can send these on to your friends, send these on to academics, to the media, to your congressman, and say, hey, look what's going on. Why are we funding the PA? Look what's happening with our money. Mm-hmm. So go onto our website, palwatch.org, and you have lots of opportunities there.
Thank you, Itamar. And if you're watching, you're listening, and you truly want to know truth, then I want to challenge you. Don't ignore what you're hearing today. Go to palwatch.org and investigate what is actually happening. There's some of you watching, listening, you're not going to do this because you've bought into a narrative and you don't want to know the truth, sadly. And I really hate to say that, but I know some people, and this is where they're at, and all they want to do is yell and holler and scream and post profanity and that Israel is lying and so on and so forth. Listen, over the years with this conflict, every single ceasefire has been broken by the Palestinians, by Hamas, by other terrorist groups. You need to understand these things because it's just so critical for the truth to be known. And so I want to challenge you. You want to know the truth? Seek it out. Don't listen to what the media is telling you. Some of that is so bent. You need to find out from the source. And Palestinian Media Watch, palwatch.org, is one of the places that you can get documented evidence of this horrific ideology and what's been happening with the Palestinians over a number of years. And so, Itamar, I commend you for your work. Thank you for what it is that you do. And I just want to ask everyone out there, go find out more about this so that you can understand the truth. Itamar, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.